Housing experts are saying the market is beginning to turn the corner, but is that what we're seeing in our local Richmond market? We'll break that down today in your December 2025 housing market update. What is going on, party people? As we do always in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about the national housing headlines that you're probably seeing in the oh so positive news media. We're going to break down what's actually happening on a national scale and how that affects us on a local scale. Let's jump into it. All right, so first and foremost, mortgage rates. Mortgage spreads have improved. Now, when I say mortgage spread, that is the difference between the 10-year treasury yield and what the going mortgage rate is in the market. So that is why rates have recently dropped to the low 6% as opposed to the kind of mid sixes that we were hanging out there for a while. Affordability is absolutely the #1 national topic. If you were paying attention to all the different elections throughout the country that we recently saw, every single candidate from every single party talked about housing affordability. It is definitely a buzzword and a hot topic in the zeitgeist of today. What's also interesting and partially attributing to the affordability issue is we are at an all-time low for the number of homes that actually went on the market and sold. Only about 28 homes out of every 1,000 homes nationally sold this year, which is the lowest turnover rate that we've seen in the last 30 years. So you might be asking yourself, so how are housing experts beginning to be optimistic about 2026? Well, let's break it down. Number one, interest rates are heading down. We've already kind of talked about that, and the Federal Reserve has kind of hinted at the fact that they're going to keep continuing to cut the federal funding rate. More homeowners are deciding to sell. We're seeing where the number of homes being put on the market is starting to increase. Inventory is returning to pre-2020 levels. We certainly went through a stretch there where inventory was excruciatingly tight, but we're starting to see where inventory is swelling back up a little bit, which is a very healthy sign for the housing market. So in short, the national housing market is slowly but steadily recovering. All right, so you might be asking yourself, hey, Chris, that sounds good. I could have gotten that on the Googles or the ChatGPTs, but what about our local Metro Richmond market? Well, let's break it down. Honestly, Metro Richmond is mirroring national trends right now. We're balanced, but we're still very much in a seller's market. Month supply of inventory is 2.2 months. Once again, anything under 6 months is considered a seller's market. That's up 1.5% from last year, so pretty much where we were this time last year. The median sales price is $405,000, which is up roughly 3 to 4% year over year. So we're kind of back to a national or a regular appreciation schedule where homes are appreciating 3 to 4%, which is kind of the 50-year average when it comes to housing. The price per square foot is $210 per square foot. That's slightly higher than what it was this time last year. Our median days on market, the amount of time it takes for a property to go under contract, is 12 to 13 days, which is up slightly, but in the grand scheme of things is still very, very quick. And last but not least, pending sales, the amount of homes that are going under contract is down slightly year over year, but it absolutely is stabilizing and buyer demand is still holding steady. All right, so let's talk about affordability and buyer sentiment. So affordability improved this fall. We're at the best level in 2+ years due to easing rates. I saw a stat the other day that the average mortgage payment has dropped $300 so far this year, which is amazing. Wages are up on a national level and inventory has loosened slightly, and buyer confidence, according to polls and studies, is seeming to improve as we head into 2026, which is encouraging news, at least for this real estate agent. All right, so let's talk about our forecast for 2026. Most forecasters expect roughly 2% home price growth nationally in 2026. So that is a little bit below the 50-year average. So we're basically still seeing appreciation, but a much slower rate than what we've seen in the last handful of years. Keep in mind, Richmond typically outperforms the national averages slightly. There is no data out there. There are no experts that are currently predicting a huge crash in the real estate market. Kind of the theme of 2026, at least currently, is stability and moderate appreciation, which are to be expected. Honestly, I think it's probably going to be a pretty good year for sellers and buyers, which sounds like a politician's answer, but for sellers, they're continuing to see home price growth, be it moderate, but they're not losing any of the value that they gained throughout COVID. And buyers are starting to see a little bit more affordability with interest rates easing and more inventory coming on the market. All right, so now, as we do always, I'm going to give you 3 practical tips if you are a prospective home seller or a prospective home buyer. Let's get into them. Number 1, price with precision, not emotion. Believe it or not, realistic pricing drives stronger offers and typically yields you more money. The folks that I see in this market that are not doing as well, that are ultimately getting less than they could, are those that overprice their homes initially and then they are left chasing the market after their home stalls out on the market. Invest in presentation. So we talk about it all the time, but we are no longer in a market where you can just slap anything on the market, receive multiple offers. We are now back in a market where doing all the things to get a home ready, carpet, paint, staging, making sure your property doesn't smell like dog. All these things are important again. So invest in that presentation. It will pay dividends when your home ultimately sells. And last but not least, it is never too early to start. So one thing that we're doing a lot of this time of year with our clients to get ahead of the game is to sit down with them if they are planning a sale or a purchase in 2026 and kind of mapping out a game plan for them, giving them some ideas on things that they can get started on now, conversations they can have with their significant others now, versus what most people do is wait until February, March and kind of start at zero, start flat-footed. Our savviest of clients are kind of mentally beginning those conversations now, that process now, so that way they are more than ready to hit the market in the spring and be one of the first homes on the market in the spring, which are typically the homes that sell for the most. For my buyers, keep an eye on the rates, but don't try to time the bottom. I had a very knowledgeable person in the mortgage industry tell me that if you try to predict interest rates, you are going to make a fool of yourself. So realize, yes, you should pay attention to the interest rates, but what's more important in my opinion is getting in the game, buying a home, letting the appreciation do its thing over time, and then if and when rates drop, refinancing, which you have the opportunity to do. Secondly, get pre-approved early. I can't tell you, this is kind of like one of those evergreen tips, but the amount of folks that I see that kind of put the cart before the horse and go out and start shopping for a home, only after they've identified a home, kind of turn around and talk with a mortgage lender is outstanding to me. Have a conversation with a mortgage lender. If you don't have a relationship with a mortgage lender, happy to put you in touch. But if you're planning a purchase in 2026, certainly have that conversation, figure out what you can afford comfortably and where that translates to as far as the purchase price. And last but not least, negotiate smart. So certainly we always want to get as many concessions out of sellers that we can, but realize we're still very much at a seller's market. So if you're looking to buy a nice turnkey home, those things are going to move quickly and you're going to have to act swiftly to get those homes under contract. Well, guys, that was our last update of 2025. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, concerns we did not address, if we can be of service to you in your next move in 2026, drop a comment, shoot me a DM, send a smoke signal. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next month.